Steeler Nation, you may still not be over that loss from Sunday, but we're going to help you get over by analyzing even further. But no, seriously, we have real questions about the offense because Steelers fans are legitimately frustrated by it. The Steelers still ranked only 31st in rushing right now. So what's different right now? There's still a lot of struggles with that offense. New offensive coordinator Matt Canada, new running back, new offensive line. Still the same problems. Joining me to break that down as well as snap counts and other defensive questions is Tony Serino for a Tony Tuesday right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Remember, you can subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our YouTube videos. That really helps us out. Also, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps out the show, and you get a shout-out at the end of the show if you do. So, Tony Serino, it's time for a Tony Tuesday. Tony, it's good to have you on as always, man. Though, albeit not after a win this week. It's a rough one. But how you hold up?
It's a sad Tony Tuesday. Yeah,
it
is. It's a sad Tony Tuesday. It's a Tuesday of mourning here in Pittsburgh. I just want to give a shout out, by the way. This is obviously a bad loss. I think a lot of people expected the Steelers to win this game. I think a lot of Steelers fans expected them to win this game handily. So I just want to give a shout out right here, Chris. I've been doing podcasts for a long time. I know that there are not, the numbers go down after a loss. I want to give a shout out to people who are still watching, still listening today. The diehards that are still here. Absolutely, yeah. Because look, this was a tough loss for this team, a tough pill to swallow for the way that they lost this game. I know a lot of Steeler fans are probably taking the week off a little bit. So if you're still watching, credit to you.
Well, no, very big credit. And we appreciate our listeners and our viewers because our numbers are still pretty good. I was a little concerned because I know, I grew up in Pittsburgh. I've been a Steelers fan. It's tough to it's tough to do this and then be like, oh man, I don't want to watch and listen to people talk about what went wrong. You don't want to be around other fans who are in the comment sections or you're seeing and then people like, oh, they're making fun. You know what? I just want to go and do something else, But
imagine, Chris, if you had a show that was live on YouTube where you had to go on with a Bengals and Browns and Ravens fan.
That'd be a nightmare.
It would feel very bad this week.
I don't know who would do that. Like if you'd call that,
who would
like
subject
AFC
themselves
North
to that
talk or something.
Who would subject themselves to that?
I don't know. That person must be a glutton for punishment. But in all seriousness, Tony, and do catch Tony's show, AFC North Talk. He brings the funny with the pain for Steelers fans. Like when he wore a paper bag over his face after they lost the playoff to the Browns.
No paper bag this week. We're okay. We're fine. No alarm bells yet.
It's not to that experience yet. But I do think we have to address the offense. And this was something that you and I, you've always had your Matt Canada hat or your Canada in general hat. He's reaching for it. If you're watching on YouTube, you get to see a treat. If you're listening to the podcast, you want to, there's the Canada hat. But you might need
appreciate that, Chris. You're right. We got to support our guy. I got to support my boy. I'm supporting my boy. We have not lost faith.
He literally switched to a Canada hat in the middle of the show. But a lot of people are upset this week, Tony, because the Steelers' rushing offense hasn't changed. There's still a lot of questions as far as how this offense is supposed to look right now.
Yeah.
Offensively, the Steelers through 2 games have about 35 rushing attempts for 114 rushing yards. Not good, Bob. Or not great, Bob, I guess is the gif that I'm going for there.
Not great.
Not great there. And so a lot of people are asking what's actually different this year. And I get the instant reaction and looking for that because people expect instant gratification. But I don't know if you agree with me, Tony. I feel like people who asked that question had unrealistic expectations for this offense. I didn't think this offense would come out and light it up. I thought this team was going to have to, especially early, and I said this on this show on Channel 11 WPXI. I said it again on Steeler Nation Radio. This team is going to need to survive around knowing that its offensive line isn't going to be good. Its running game isn't going to be up to snuff until probably later in the season if it gets there. This defense is going to have to carry them. And when you lose 5 starters on defense, and elite starters. Not, it wasn't just Tyson Alulu and maybe you lost James Pierre or maybe you lost Terrell Edmonds. You lost your best player in TJ Watt. You lost the cover linebacker who was supposed to change everything with Devin Bush. You lost Joe Hayden, your top cornerback, on top of Tyson Alulu, and you're already missing Stephon Tuitt. That's eventually the defense. And the thing is, the defense, I still don't think played bad. They only allowed 2 touchdowns against the Raiders offense that I thought actually played pretty well, with their circumstances. But for me, I'm not all again. I don't think this is a Matt Canada thing. I think this is they need to find some fluidity, something that they can rely on in this offense, and they just haven't done that yet.
No, and they're really stuck in what seems to me like a vicious cycle offensively, right? Where people yell about the running game and they yell about the run pass ratio, but this offense really has this struggle early on in football games that again, it turns into this vicious cycle where, okay, the offense can't move the football early in the game. So now the Steelers fall behind, right? Then they start to rely on the passing game more to get themselves back into the football game. Now the run pass ratio is off. It is just this kind of vicious cycle. And then all of the changes, all the new looks that we wanted from this offense, we're somewhat reliant, obviously, on this offensive line playing better. And like you, I'm not ready to just sit here and say, like, Kendrick Green's a bust. All these guys are all busts. Right. This whole thing this whole thing is over here in Pittsburgh. I'm not ready to say that yet. It's still early. I do think, and I think there are some positives to take out of this loss to the Raiders. I thought offensively, they played better in this game. I think statistically speaking, they did play. They went from 4 yards a play, 4.5 yards a play against the Bills to 5.5 yards a play against Las Vegas. I thought they did a better job of moving the football. Now it's about putting things together, and I think there are some things you can take out of this game as far as their ability to get Freiermuth into the offense and starting to figure out that, hey, maybe Freiermuth is a better option than Ebron is, getting Najee involved, not just in the running game, but in the receiving game as well. And then, Chris, and I know you were there in the stadium, the All-22 is not out, but it feels like, once again, this team is going to face a ton of cover one this year as teams are going to kind of load the box. And I do enjoy that the Steelers are at least trying to take some shots downfield. Now, they're not in the middle of the field, but, the long passes down to Claypool, I thought, Claypool, if he can turn 50-50 balls into 75-25 type passes, the one down to Deontay was also good as well. Challenge defenses down the field. They are hitting some of those plays. If they can do that, this offense can get better in a hurry.
I do get a sense that some of this might be Ben Roethlisberger feeling more comfortable with the concepts that they're throwing out there. If this might be more of a, hey, you know what? Like, Ben may know the call, Ben may know like the progressions, but figuring out, like, listen, like everyone's looking at his passing chart and they're noting how there's no passes beyond 20 yards down the middle of the field. Now, looking back at his actual passing chart for the game, Pro Football Focus had it charted. He threw 8 passes beyond 20 yards down the field and completed 2 of those 8 for 93 yards and had an interception. But again, none of those targets came between the numbers. 5 of them went outside to the left. 3 of them went outside to the right. The outside of the right, there was not a single completion in that direction. So I look at this, and the bulk of his throws were like about between 1 to 0 between the line of scrimmage and 10 yards. In the middle of the field, where he was 12 of 13 for 86 yards, and that's fine. It's good to have those to do that, but you gotta put if you're gonna have those guys, if those guys are patrolling the middle of the box like that, you got to put them in guessing games. You got to force them to make tough decisions. And sometimes that means getting ready to take on Najee Harris in the middle of the field and then throwing behind them if they play it too aggressively.
Well, and you're exactly right. And, you look over at the Raiders side, and I understand that Derek Carr right now, look, he's just a better quarterback than Ben Roethlisberger is as far as his willingness to throw those kind of passes. But you look at the concept that the Raiders ran on what was the biggest play of the game, right? The kind of high-low concept that they ran where Minkah went to Waller and they had Ruggs come overneath him, right? I mean, this is something the Steelers can do as well, right? I mean, they have a guy like Claypool who can get deep. They have even Deontay can get deep. I mean, they again can challenge in that way. It's not like they don't have the weapons to do similar things. They're just right now, I just don't see a lot of like the high-low concepts in this offense. And maybe it's a case where the Steelers don't feel like with this offensive line that that Ben Roethlisberger can afford to take the kind of 5 and 7 step drops and survey the field that it would take to make a play like that work. Ben still has the quickest time to throw of anyone in the National Football League. That hasn't changed from last season. I mean, some of this, Chris, may just be that, if this offensive line starts to play better, then that opens up things for Matt Canada, that opens up things for Ben Roethlisberger, and maybe we start to see that stuff down the line. But yeah, right now I made this analogy on AFC North Talk, right? This offense is like if you break your phone and you put a new case on it, sure, it looks like a new phone, but underneath it's still broken.
It's still broken. And we got to talk about how they need to fix it moving forward. I don't think they're in this doomed situation where some people are already, spelling it out. Like, and those, a lot of those people were going to do this anyways. They were waiting for the first loss. They thought they could do it last week with Buffalo. And now, and they had to wait. So they kind of laid back and they were like, aha, we told you. And it's like, we knew this offense was going to struggle, but we're going to talk more about how to fix that offense in just a bit here. But first, I got to tell you guys about BetOnline. It's that time of the year again, and all eyes are turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. Get all the updated odds, props, and contests, including the $500,000 NFL Mega Contest and the $200,000 NFL Survivor Contest, open now at BetOnline. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. And be sure to take advantage of all the different promos that they have available, both in the NFL and in college football. There's tons of great matchups to choose from, and look for the opportunities. There are some out there where you can have a wager placed on a game, and it can be refunded up to $25. Check the contest for details on which contests are available for that. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, from football to basketball to boxing, right down to horse racing. Don't wait and take advantage of all the great offers available for the 2021 season at BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Tony Serino for a Tony Tuesday. Remember, you can subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. Continuing to break down the offense here. I'm looking at some of the charts here for the Steelers passing game, Tony. And one thing I notice when I look at according to Pro Football Focus, the Steelers have still only called 7 play action passes so far. According to their passing concept chart, and they've completed 4 of those 7 passes for just 36 yards. So part of me wonders if, they're still not sure how to believe in the run. I mean, in the last game, they only gave the ball to Najee 10 times as a runner. And look, I thought Najee had a really good game. The stiff arm that he threw on, whoever that man was. I'm sorry. That was as bad as, Vance McDonald giving, Chris Connie the business. That was as bad as I'm sure Drake Kirkpatrick is probably somewhere like, thank goodness I'm not against Cincinnati anymore. So I don't got to see that next week. Because he used to get that from Le'Veon Bell all the time. But you see that, and you saw the touchdown that he had. Like, there's the potential there. It's not like he can't do it. It's just about getting that continuity. And one thing that you brought up is I don't think this offensive line can't do it. And our friend Mark Caboli of The Athletic, he brought this up when asked about Kendrick Green the other day on Twitter. And someone asked, is Kendrick Green just does he stink? And it's like, it's not that he stinks. And I think you could say this about him, Dan Moore Jr., Kevin Dotson, even Chukwuma Okorafor, because a lot of people are giving him crap. And there was the one play where Max Crosby kind of beat him and knocked him over. But, Trey Essex, a former Steelers lineman himself, said, look at the play again. His foot got stepped on. He couldn't move his foot. And so that was part of that. I really feel like when you look at the tape, there's times that each of these guys win their matchups individually, but it's very rare that they all do well enough in their matchups to hold the line and move it forward and give Najee Harris a good flow, or a good space to work. Yeah. And that's where the continuity has to build. And it takes time for that.
And that is, yes, you're absolutely right on that. I mean, and Kabuli made the point so well where he said, it's individually, all the offensive linemen are making good plays. They're just not doing it together. Right. And that, I think, is the issue. You watch some of these, the zone runs that they have. And yes, I mean, there might be a crease for Najee if the backside of the play didn't break down, right? Or, if a guy had just had inside leverage, all of these things about the offensive line where it's like these small margins that are holding these Najee runs from being what could be 6-yard runs. And right now, it's a lot of 1 and 2 yard stuff. And it's, and the negative run stuff, I think, is what's keeping the Steelers from even trying to run the football, because that kind of negativity in this offense is what's keeping this offense down, right? I think their yards per their plays per first down are one of the worst in the league. And I think it's because, when you have those negative plays early in downs, it gets you later and later, and, you're not going to convert until 3rd down. So, no, I'm with you on that. I think this is not an offensive line. And I think you said this in the first segment. You should not have expected an offensive line as young as this is to come out and light the world on fire. right? I mean, this is not the Steelers did not rebuild their offensive line the way the Browns did a year ago, where they went out and spent a bunch of money in free agency, or the way the Chiefs did this year, where they went and spent a bunch of money and traded away a first-round pick to get high quality players. This is a very, very young offensive line. It's going to take time for this team to grow. You can't hit a panic button on offense this young after 2 weeks.
No, I agree. You can't, and you need them again. On top of the lineman, Pat Freiermuth's in the mix, and I brought this up as well. Pat Freiermuth is getting more snaps than Ebron, albeit marginally in these games. But they've only targeted him 5 times so far, and I keep thinking we're talking about the middle of the field and opening things up and forcing defenses to back off the middle of the box. Hitting him on some 15-yard over the middle routes might be an answer. He's certainly shown to be short-handed. He's caught all 5 of his 5 targets. So maybe that's part of the plan that needs to be. I understand Eric Ebron hasn't been the most reliable in doing that so far, and maybe that's why that he's getting less snaps than Freiermuth right now. But to me, that has to be part of the continuity. Is you got to buy time for this offensive line. You got to be able to do things without needing them to be stellar. Because there were several times where I thought they had good protection and Ben just didn't like what he saw or wasn't sure about what he saw. And that's where Ben's savviness, his experience as a quarterback, his experience as a leader need to come through in those moments where it's like, hey, I am not surprised by how you tried to fake me out here. I have this check down available, instead of holding on to the ball, kind of trying to make things up. And then the offensive line starts to crumble there.
Yeah, no, and I think we're seeing a lot of this year. And again, this is one of these I don't remember about last year. Maybe if I went back and watched a tape, I'd be surprised. But I don't remember Ben being this much outside of outside of the scheme or outside of the system, where he's just kind of running around and kind of doing his own thing.
Yeah.
After the play breaks down, we're seeing more of that this year. And look, I'm not opposed to this. I know Ben Roethlisberger's 39 years of age, and everyone's afraid. He took that huge shot in the first quarter of this game. But some of that, as these young guys start to gel with Ben Roethlisberger, and he can start to, they get better at ad-libbing. I mean, that is where you go back. And I'm not comparing anyone on this team to Antonio Brown, but that is where Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown made a lot of their money, right? Yeah. Was on that ad-lib after the play. This is where Ben Roethlisberger has been at his best at times. And yes, 39 years of age, he can't move as much as he did. But I'll tell you what, he threw a pump fake in this game, Chris. I mean, he pump faked. He pump faked a defensive tackle who was coming free at him, who thought the ball was gone, and he just kind of walked right by Ben Roethlisberger. Mm-hmm. So, Ben still got it in that way. And I think if you can start to get those kind of out of structure plays into this offense, man, that helps. The other thing, and again, another positive out of this game, they are actually hitting the deep ball a little bit better than they were in the past. You had the 50-yarder to Claypool, you had the 40-yarder to Deontay, the Najee Harris catch and run. I mean, that's why you drafted him in the first round, is that he can turn what was a 7-yard gain into a 25-yard touchdown. Those kind of big plays, I've talked about this in the offseason, those are the big plays this offense needs. You can't just rely on this offense to be a 10-play, 13-play drive type offense. They need that big play. They need those big plays. And you know what? They're starting to get them a little bit.
I agree. They're getting more of them. This week they only hit two of their deep balls. Last week they didn't even try any. But
they had the Claypool one last week. The Claypool mossed Tre'Davious White last week.
Oh, I think, did that count as a medium throw? I was just checking PFF here. I think they counted it as less than 20 yards. That is is interesting.
Yeah, that's weird. Because I think the Steelers this year have, I think I did a thing on StatHead. I think they have 6 plays of 20 yards or more this year.
I mean, and that's good.
Not terrible.
For the first 2 games compared to where they have been, we're relying on underneath dinks and dunks a lot, and they still do a bit. One thing again, people are like, well, this looks like the same offense, and that's where I wanted to start the show off with Matt Canada. Is this the same offense? I don't think it is. I think that they're going to the things that they know conceptually Ben Roethlisberger is the most comfortable with, to not make the big mistakes, because in these early games, you knew this offense wasn't going to pop off and win you some shootouts. So what you want your offense to do is to be conservative, give your receivers and your running backs and chances to make plays with the balls in their hands, and make a guy miss like Najee did, turn up field and just get to the end zone as best as you can. Trust that that's going to happen, and then trust your defense to not make it matter. I just think it's a reality that when you lose and you can't. And I saw some people say, oh, the Raiders, well, they had a lot of injuries. They're like, but the Raiders knew about most of those injuries going into the game. They knew that Josh Jacobs wasn't going to play. It's different when you can game plan around, hey, we know he's not going to be there. The Steelers game plan to have Devin Bush, Joe Hayden, Tyson Alulu, and TJ Watt in this game. And when you lost that many in the first half, that was a big adjustment to have to make. And no excuses. Mike Tomlin said, we have to be better at doing this. We have to have more answers for those things. But I still think that it is unrealistic to expect the defense to remain elite when its elite players go down in a situation like that. And then the emphasis on offense, the game plan on offense that you made to be conservative while you're figuring out your identity, that takes a big hit. Because it messes up the balance of how you want your team to succeed.
Yeah, and one of the things about this game that was different from last week, last week it was very much a game where, by the second half, all three phases were working together, right? The offense scored a touchdown, the defense got a 3-and-out, special teams got a blocked punt for a touchdown, right? I mean, all three phases working together in harmony to give that team a 2-score lead. This week it wasn't that way, and I thought one of the problems in this game is the Steelers took the lead in the first half, and then the defense, immediately the Raiders went down and kicked a field goal. Second half, the Steelers cut the lead to 2, game back on in the fourth quarter, and then the Raiders had another drive. This is a team right now that's just not built to win offensively. They're so reliant on this defense to be dominant and dominant in turnovers. And we should talk about that as well. This defense, and maybe it's an over reliance on turnovers, but I mean, a game with no turnovers, it should come as no shock the Steelers did not win that football game. They haven't won a game. I don't believe they've won a game where they didn't get a turnover since, I think, 2018. I'd have to check, but I think it's since 2018 they have not won a game where they didn't get a turnover.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that out of their control when TJ Watt forced a fumble and they almost got it, and then he got hurt right after that. So there's I think if TJ Watt stays in that game, maybe they do force some of those turnovers, because then you also saw increased snaps from Melvin Ingram and Alex Highsmith, because they had to be on the field a lot more in the game. That kind of ruins the rotation of 3 that the Steelers were able to use against the Bills. So there's that. I want to flip to the defense in just a second here. We'll go over some snap counts and some official, I'd say official numbers when it comes to the defense and some of the advanced stats. But we'll do that after I tell you guys about RockAuto.com. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? For example, a Honda Odyssey fuel pump is $353 from a chain store, but it's $216 from RockAuto.com. Rock Auto is a family-owned business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto's prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could need, from brake parts to tail lamps to motor oil to even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs by going to RockAuto.com right now. And you can see all the parts available for your car or truck. Be sure to write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box, so that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliable low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit RockAuto.com today and tell them that Locked On sent you. Also, we're brought to you by DirecTV Stream. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another lets you stream your favorite shows, then you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and then you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before. So you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes. No need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. And again, that's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. And Tony, as we always do on the Locked On Steelers podcast, if I do back-to-back live reads, we keep it rolling. Right to the third segment. Here we go. Now, looking at the defense, I saw some people say, "Oh, the defense stinks because they gave up that bomb to Ruggs." I was kind of like, and I didn't even put that on Minka as much. And I said this, I wanted to see if you agreed with this. He was working so hard to bracket Darren Waller that he wasn't going to be able to get to Ruggs. That's why Witherspoon, as a corner, you cannot be afforded to beat deep when your team is worried about their number 1 target that going over the middle of the field. And that's good game planning by the Raiders to mix. Hey, we know they're focusing on Waller. Let's see if we can get a shot there, on a fourth down play. That's that's and that was a huge play by Derek Carr. And I think that was the biggest. That was undoubtedly the biggest play of the game. But what was your assessment of how that worked out?
Yeah, no, I've seen this take, and look, it is tough because, and you were in the press box all game. I haven't seen the all 22 yet, but it does. It from what I've read from people who were in the press box, it sounds like the Steelers were basically doing the high-low bracket of Waller all game long. I mean, it was all game, right? So it's not shocking that Minkah was kind of was going that way. Here's the issue I have with that play. I think Witherspoon definitely thought he had safety over the top help, or because he had outside leverage. So he definitely thought he had help inside, right where Minkah should have been. And the other thing I don't like about that play is that if you're Minkah, I get that if you're gonna bracket Waller when if Spillane is covering him, or those times when Schobert was covering him, understood. But in that moment, it was James Pierre on Waller. And look, now, while James Pierre, I know we're going to turn this into a meme segment. I'm going to try very hard not to.
I was worried you were about.
No. I'm really going to try hard not to turn this into a meme segment, but it may just come out. But no, look, James Pierre is a 6'2" corner, right? Who at least has the size and the speed to keep up. This is not like a complete athletic mismatch like you would have if it were Schobert or Spillane on Waller. Still a mismatch. Don't get me wrong. Waller is one of the best tight ends in the league, and James Pierre is very, very young. But Witherspoon on Ruggs, I mean, that is a massive, massive red flag for this team, especially, when Witherspoon thinks he has safety up over the top. And that's where I think this one's, for me, this one's a little bit more on Minkah in my eyes, and it's so subtle on that play because it's not like, what he did was that dramatic. It's just that he opened his hips towards Waller's side right as the ball got thrown over his head. And so, he nearly comes back and makes a shoestring tackle at the end. But for me, Minkah's got to understand, the real mismatch here is Witherspoon on Ruggs. I've got a corner, not a linebacker, on Waller. But again, I don't know what the coaching staff was telling him. Very clearly, like you pointed out, the game plan coming in this game was to bracket Waller, and that clearly was in his mind.
And that was definitely his mind. But also remember, it's fourth down, and I think they're looking at this like hey, we got to play the sticks type of situation.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he was looking. I think that's where he was looking at, hey, they've been dinking and dunking us. Derek Carr was finding, and I again give Derek Carr a lot of credit in this game. He was finding the soft spots in this defense after that first half. So
he was tremendous. He was fantastic. And the other guy who was very, very good in this game, who should get a lot of credit from the Raiders side, is Hunter Renfrow. Renfrow made some amazing catches. He had the one where I think Sutton was in coverage and he had to extend to get it. He played a really, really good football game.
It's why John Gruden likes him so much. I wanted to go over some snap count numbers with you because I thought this was interesting, Tony. They had Joe Schobert play every snap. There were 66 total snaps on defense. He joins the normal secondary of Minkah, Terrell Edmonds, Sutton, and James Pierre took the place of Joe Hayden as the other corner who got every single snap. Melvin Ingram played 86% of the snap, while Alex Highsmith played 67% of the snap. They had Watt playing 24%. He played 16 snaps before he got hurt. And then Jameer Jones played 23% of the snaps. I look at that edge rushing combo, and I'm like, man, the whole point of signing Melvin Ingram wasn't that he would be your number one or number two. It was that he would be in a rotation of three, and it would just really be TJ Watt and then 2A and 2B in him and Highsmith. And I think that's where some problems came, where they were getting after it. They were still getting pressure, but you could tell as the game wore on, they got more gassed, and they weren't able to do the things that they did to Buffalo with the confusion and getting each guy a breather.
Yeah, and I think we should give massive props to what Melvin Ingram's been able to do through 2 games so far. Because this is a guy who was completely written off this offseason. When the Steelers signed him, right, everyone's like, Melvin Ingram's way past his prime. There's no way he rejuvenates his career in Pittsburgh.
That has not been the case.
Yeah. Melvin Ingram has arguably been through 2 games. Right? I mean, I know this is because Watt has a limited snap count, but Melvin Ingram's been the most impactful pass rusher the Steelers have had in these 2 games. He was great in this football game. For me, the disappointment here is Alex Highsmith, right? Because Highsmith had a ton of hype coming out of training camp, coming out of preseason with his ability to get off the ball. He's working on those inside counters, all the stuff that he's been able to do. Unfortunately, I think he's been credited with 3 pressures through 2 games, no sacks just yet. I know he's one that is dealing with another injury though, right? Because he was on the practice report last week or the week before going into the opener. I don't know if he's still dealing with an injury or whatnot. He's the one who I think, like you talked about the snap counts here, he's the one that I expected to be getting the majority of the counts because he is so young. Ingram's someone who you probably wanted to pitch count because the concern for Ingram for me is less about the play on the field and more about that longevity. Imagine what happens to this room now. I mean, if Melvin Ingram, if Watt can't go against the Bengals and then Ingram goes down in the game, then it's massive, massive problems at the edge rush position.
And that's going on top of the defensive tackle, which at one point was maybe the biggest, the best depth on the team. With you had Tuitt coming back at some point, but Cam Hayward, Tyson Olu, Chris Wormley. I mean, that is a foursome is fine, but then you had Carlos Davis and Isaiah Buggs, but Alulu gone with the fractured ankle, and then Tuitt's still not back, and now Carlos Davis is hurt, and even Isaiah Buggs was hurt. They sent Alulu to IR, and now Henry Mondoza is coming up. That's a tough situation to be in, and their flexibility has also helped in the edge rushers' flexibility. So I think there's a lot of depth questions now on defense because of the injuries that are here, and again, that depth, that defensive strength, that was a huge part to me for why this team was going to be able to wait and be patient for its offense, because they were going to have fresh legs, be getting after it, and be an aggressive bunch.
Yeah, and this is if you're going to raise any alarm bells in Pittsburgh today, if this defense, the injuries that we're already seeing out of this defense, if this trend continues, now it looks like Watt's going to come back. It looks like some of these guys they come back healthy, may even be able to play against Cincinnati. Great news. But if this injury thing, I think we all saw on Sunday how fragile, right? How kind of on a razor's edge this team is between the great play we saw against Buffalo and what was just the Steelers looked like a bang average football team without that great defense, right? That is the difference between this team potentially competing for the division or a playoff spot and falling closer to an 8-8 football team. If this defense can't stay healthy and can't sustain the level of play, they just don't have an offense right now to back it up. And that to me, if there is any alarm bells right now, it's what's happening on this defense from an injury perspective. They're just not built to afford it.
I agree. They cannot afford to lose that many people. I think they can lose one or two. Like if Devin Bush and TJ Watt were fine, I think they still win this game, even without Joe Hayden. I think if TJ Watt and Joe Hayden are alive, maybe are in this game, maybe they can survive without Devin Bush, because I actually didn't think Schobert played poorly. I thought he did a very good job with what he was asked to do. According to Pro Football Focus, one second, let me make sure I'm saying this correctly. He was targeted 9 times, allowed 6 completions for about 80 yards and a touchdown. But when you consider, and he had two pass breakups, when you consider, linebackers wise, like, Fred Warner, Bobby Wagner, they give up around 70% completion rates too. Yeah. I think he wasn't victimized as much throughout this game. He gave up there were 2 plays, the touchdown and the deep late play to Waller. Those were the 2 I was like, okay, he definitely got beat there. But other than that, I thought he held his own for being a guy that just got to this team a month ago.
The issue I had with the linebackers, and it wasn't just, I don't want to just single out the linebackers because I thought there were other guys in the secondary as well. I think Sutton missed a couple. The missed tackles were a big issue.
He definitely did.
The missed tackles, I think, in this game are something, as we look back, if you look back on the tape, really stand out. There are so many times the Raiders are able to catch and run. Yeah. That was a big issue defensively. Even if they just clean that up, this might be a different football game, because the Raiders were able to extend drives and get big plays, not because it was a bunch of air yards from Carr, but because they were able to make the first man miss and get into the open field and make things happen that way. I think that is where the Steelers miss some of those vet guys, the Haydens, the Devin Bush, obviously the TJ Watts of the world. You can't be missing tackles on this defense.
Agreed. You can't be missing tackles on the defense in this game. Trey Norwood missed 50% of his tackles. Cameron Sutton missed 40% of his tackles. Chris Wormley 33%. Melvin Ingram 25%. Joe Schobert 18%. Minka 14%, which actually isn't that bad. But you know who hasn't missed a single tackle in the secondary?
Terrell Edmonds.
James Pierre.
James Pierre. James Pierre. Wait, no. He did miss a tackle in this game. Oh no, they called it back. They called it back. They called it back. That's what happened.
Way to do that.
James Pierre was. Look, I'm a James Pierre fanboy. You guys all know me. James Pierre was not great in this game.
He wasn't great. But one thing, I think he's got the fundamentals down. He just need to kind of keep polishing his game to add the extra parts to be the special corner.
It does feel like he's playing a little bit too. He's I don't want to say play scared because guys don't play scared. That's the wrong way to put it. But you know what I mean? Like a little more timid than you'd want from a guy.
He's playing like conservatively. He's keeping the play in front of him, and he's doing what he's being coached to do. I get that. he's not taking the risks yet, and it's fine. I'm fine with that because you aren't Joe Hayden yet. You haven't earned those props yet. Now, Cameron Sutton was the same way for a long time. I'm gonna just keep the play in front of me and be consistent. Now he's a starting cornerback. Now you can break up more passes. You can go for things. So James Pierre, I think he's doing just fine there. But the defense, the biggest thing is who's going to be healthy. TJ Watt supposedly is up in the air to play this weekend, but that's good because that means he's not long-term. Deontay Johnson also looks like he's not going to be long-term according to reports from Mike Garofalo. We got to see about Devin Bush and Joe Hayden, about their groin injuries. And Mike Tomlin does talk today, this Tuesday, at noon in his press conference. I will be there asking questions, so that'll be part of that. Tony, thanks so much for joining the show. We're way over our time, but I appreciate you always doing Tony too. No, you're fine. I'll let it go this long because I enjoy the shows with you. But please let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, of course. You can follow me on Twitter at Steeler Country. You can find me on a YouTube show called AFC North Talk. It's a roundtable show all about the AFC North. You can find that on YouTube live every Tuesday and Thursday. So make sure you're subscribed there. And then you can also find me on my YouTube channel, Steeler Country with Tony Serino. And then, of course, every Tuesday here, Tony Tuesdays on Locked On Steelers.
Absolutely. Do check out his show. He does a great job there. Tony, thanks for coming on. I'm Chris Carter, your host of Locked On Steelers podcast. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Thanks to all those who support the show. If you like this show, like us, like this, click the like button on our YouTube videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share our YouTube channel. It's really important. Subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey. Also leave us a 5-star rating with a positive comment on Apple. That really helps out the show as well. We'll be back tomorrow. We got Wes Euler from Steeler Nation Radio, my good old buddy. He's coming on the show. We're going to break some things down with him on a Wednesday here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.